Michael, what do you think?
Well, I think people like me should have the age of consent made larger, older, because you know, I was a kid, and I remember I was 13 years old, and my first several sexual experiences were terrifying. I mean, first of all, I was alone. Someone has to protect us from ourselves, I think, is what it really comes down to. And no, but on the serious side, if I can possibly summon a serious side, you know, my biggest concern in the work that I've done and my organization does is really, you know, infinitely more concerned about the possibility, the greater possibility of predators, and that we're naive about people. We have shows in the States, you know, about how people find out online that they're speaking with someone who's 14 years old, 15 years old, 13 years old, and they're having, you know, these hot chats with them, and they show up, and then they're arrested when they show up. There's too much of that likeliness. So I would say if we're going to err on the side of safety, we do it on the side of protecting our children, and that's by keeping the age older, not younger. And when it comes to the possibility of you know, maybe improper or I mean, too extreme penalties for two 15-year-olds, I think those circumstances should go in front of an educated judge. If we have educated judges here? Yep.
Sometimes.
We're kind of mixed.
Not a lot.
There's a bit of a mix of that in the States as well. And it should be a basis, you know, one at a time, and look at if there are mitigating circumstances.
I must admit, I'm not entirely sure about changing the law, but I do find it alarming, Amanda, that an 18-year-old who has a relationship with someone who is 1 month shy of their 16th birthday could effectively be locked up for 14 years as the law stands at present. That doesn't strike me as right.
No.
And I do have concerns, because I can remember myself, Croydon boy, doing it at 14 with someone. Not necessarily the smartest thing in the world to do, but actually the fact that it was a criminal act was in my conscience.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
You see, yeah, I think one of the things that worries me about lowering the age, particularly for girls, I think there's a lot of pressure on girls at 13 and 14 years old. I mean, when I was in my teens, I went out with a guy that was 2 or 3 years older than me, and you are pressured as a girl to kind of lose your virginity. And I think if it's lowered to the age of 13, there will be added pressure. It's okay, it's legal. You know, the government say that it's all right to do it at this age. It'll be fine.
Well, maybe that will have positive effects, that people will feel happier to talk about contraception.
I think
everyone's so squeamish about these things.
The
I don't think they're linked, actually.
Well, hang on. We have a highest teen pregnancy rate, OK, and then all the other countries in Europe you mentioned have a lower age of consent and lower teen pregnancy.
But we also
maybe there's a link.
No, but we also have this hilarious sort of, you know, culture in this country where we have a woman with her breasts out on page 3.
But they do that in Germany. They do that in Germany. You have nudity on TV. But David, you've got to see that there is a logical thread there. We have a higher age of consent and have higher levels of teen pregnancy.
It doesn't mean it's cause and effect.
But it's possible.
It's possible. It could be a cause.
It's possible.
But what we don't do, we're not very good at talking to our children about sex and saying sex is a normal, natural process.
Possibly because we want to wait until they're 16, because that's when the law says they can have sex.
No, because we're embarrassed, because we don't have the equipment to do it.
I didn't have... My sex education at my school consisted of my teacher putting a condom on her fingers, and that was it. And I had friends...
Is that how you prevent babies?
Well,
I've been doing it wrong. I've been pulling them over my head.
Friends of mine used to say to me, "You're all right, you can't get pregnant on a Friday." And you know, but we had no idea.
I told you that last week.
But we need better education.
I think it is interesting, the fact that we have a higher teen pregnancy and a higher age of consent than our European neighbours. I do think it's interesting. Let's throw it over to you. Should the age of consent be lowered? Kirsty.
First we have Eileen, and she's on line 1.
Morning, Eileen.
Good morning.
Morning. What do you think? Should it be lowered?
No, it should not be lowered. The law says that it should be 16 for very specific reasons, and mainly health reasons. Would we turn around and say to an 18-year-old, well, we don't want you to drink, right? And then say, well, we know you're going to do it anyway, so you can have 5 alcohols. We don't want you to smoke, but we know you're going to do it anyway, so let's give you 10 cigarettes.
Well, hang on a minute.
We know that...
Hang on. Drinking and smoking are social habits or addictions that don't necessarily do your health any good. You could argue that healthy sex, performed with full knowledge of risks using contraception, is a positive thing that has no negative effects on the human health. It's a good thing.
Well, I beg your pardon, but it certainly has negative effects on girls under the age of 16 if they have sex too early.
Well,
because
particularly...
the cervix isn't properly
But particularly...
and can actually encourage them to have...
But Eileen, particularly if they get pregnant or a disease, and one of the reasons I would suggest they may get pregnant or get a disease is perhaps because they feel that they cannot seek out contraception because they are committing an illegal act.
No, Matthew, that's complete nonsense. Most teenagers these days, they see it everywhere. It's in teenage magazines, it's plastered.
Well, hang on, there's inconsistencies there. You're saying they recognise the law and they can understand how they can deviate around the law, but they're too stupid to figure out how to protect themselves. You can't have it both ways.
Well, in Scotland, there was an organisation called Health to Respect who had access to teenagers, Scotland-wide, who promised that if they got access to teenagers to give them more explicit sex education, access to contraception, that within a 5-year period, they would bring down teenage pregnancies by 20%,
right,
teenage abortions by 50%, and sexually transmitted infections as well. And what they've actually done is the complete opposite. Teenage pregnancies rose by 9%, teenage abortions rose even more, and infections of chlamydia went up by 75%.
OK, and then you can cross the English Channel, Eileen. You can cross the English Channel and go to Holland and find the lowest teen pregnancy rate in the Western world, where they do have sex education from 5.
Everybody batters us over the head with the Holland model, right? And what happens is called deconstructing the Dutch utopia. In Holland, parents take control of sex education. They go into the schools, they sit down with the teachers, and they decide what is age and stage appropriate for their children. That's how it happens in Holland. It's not a blanket kind of sex education programme that goes on in every school where every child is told the same thing. They're a wee bit more moral there. And also what they do is teenage pregnancy is frowned on in Holland because you cannot get access to public sector housing, you cannot get access to like social security money and things like that, because a curator ad litem is appointed and the money is given to either the grandparent, right, or someone else to make sure that it's spent on the child. That's why we don't have the same amount of teenage pregnancies in Holland, not because of sex education.
It's not because they're really stoned.
No, there's one much bigger thing, which is actually the rate of family breakdown in Holland is lower than here. And I think that's, you've hit on the nerve here, which is that actually children need to be taught about this, but in a way that's within a protective family environment. And that's something we're not very good at doing, because parents of my age are embarrassed. They don't know what they're talking about, and they don't want to address it. And that's one of the biggest issues we need to address.
Just because Eileen's incredibly well informed, it's a great call, Eileen, thank you. But in the meantime, Eileen, is it acceptable that 38% of the British population have committed a criminal act by being under 16 and having sex?
Well, you know, the age of consent was set at 16 or way back in the 1880s because a lady called Josephine Butler was horrified that anybody could walk into the East End of London and with a guinea in their hands could buy a boy or a girl to do anything they wanted with. My fear is if you lower the age to consent to 13, you'll get some, you know, predator saying, well, she looked 13 when she's actually 12 or 11, right? And in this country, there's a mandatory life sentence for having sex with a girl under the age of 13. They can't give consent to the sexual act.
That's right.
And I'm saying keep it at 16.
OK. I mean, I'm still concerned, as I said, about someone 18 having a relationship with a 15-year-old 2 months shy of their birthday, facing 14 years in prison. Seems a little stiff when you've got guys killing people getting 2 years. Thank you for the call, Eileen. Brilliant. Let's have another.
Zoe's on line 3.
Zoe, good morning.
Hi.
Does it need to change the age of consent?
Absolutely not. I've got a 15-year-old daughter. She's had a relationship with her boyfriend of 16 for 3 months now. We're very open at home and talk very openly about sex. She's on the pill, but she feels very much pressured, not by the boyfriend, but by, you know, school friends. The
world,
generally, magazines, TV. That she seems to feel like she's the only person on the planet with her virginity still.
Well, she isn't, and that's the important thing to say, in that actually there is this sort of opinion that is changing, and I think that you've just got to support her in that decision and say, actually, this is a really positive decision you're making.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's good also to hear that the boyfriend isn't the devil incarnate driving her to drop her drawers, that it's the social pressure, because I think it's too easy to sort of just blame boys.
that drive. Never mind.
OK, we'll leave that one there. Great calls, thank you, folks. After the break, I don't know whether this is lighter fare or not. Do women need a drink before sex? A new study suggests a lot of you do. Half of you prefer sex while under the influence. Why? I mean, is it you need help relaxing, to warm you up a bit? Are 4 glasses of wine better than 40 minutes of foreplay, or indeed 14 minutes of foreplay, if we're going to keep Lambykins happy? Or indeed 4 minutes. 0807 173 5555 is the number for your thoughts. And if women need a drink to enjoy sex, I'll say it again. What about men? Your shout after the ads.
Who said, I don't think I've ever had sex for the first time with anyone stone cold sober? Twiggy, Vanessa Feltz or Nigella Lawson?